poem, it talks about, do you like me or the version of the person that you think I am? And so that line means so much to me because I've shown you what I want you to see. And that's pretty much it. That's all I've chosen to show you. And so now we have to ask ourselves, do people really like us or the version of the person that they think we are?
And like fluctuations, and I don't look like how I used to look. I may not write how I used to look. So I was like, you know what? I am getting older. And I'm like, when I get to that age or when I'm getting older, this is like a few years ago, I'm not going to think like these other women think. I'm still going to be good. And then here I am at this stage. I'm like, okay, now I see what they meant. Stuff is not working like it used to. It's not like oiling up like it used to. It's a lot harder to get up. Okay, these 30.
And that trauma from the longest relationship that I'd ever been in at the time was I always had to say sorry. Even if like this person had a way of, when I was mad and when I was angry, they can flip it. And by the end of the conversation, I'm saying sorry to them for being mad about something that they did to me. And I'm like, what kind of voodoo was that? Welcome to In My Bag with Backpack Jeff, where we connect with ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And today I got a very special guest. I have an entrepreneur. I have an author. I have an owner of multiple businesses. I have a phenomenal woman. I have a Black phenomenal woman. I have someone who literally just spreads light and love everywhere that they go. My goal is to get her to cry at some point during this podcast and mess up her makeup because there are no paper towels or tissues here, y'all. Without further ado, I want y'all to be introduced to Miss Talea Tik Tok. You don't stop her. What's going on?
Hey, everybody. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. And look, hold on. You got to pause because I am wearing white. Okay. So this face cannot run.
Nah,
too much.
The face is going to, all I got to do is just give her several compliments and she'll be like,
hey, look, I'm a Cancer, okay? Look, I'm emotional, like all the time.
All the time. Good morning. How are you today?
I am absolutely super fantastic. I'm so excited to be here, even though it is snowing and it was just 80 degrees the other day, but I am feeling fantastic.
Feeling fantastic. Okay, tell us, who is TikTok?
It's gonna be very funny, so it may sound very crazy. So Talea and TikTok are like the same person, but there are sometimes that, I mean, you know this, that I may speak in the third person because they interchange. But I am a person who is someone that is very resilient. Things are often has been hit in my life, and I come back always stronger. I love to help people around me. I love dogs.
Okay.
I love my puppies, and I enjoy also too using what God has given me to be able to give back and be able to share my story. So and I do that with all the things I do in my life. So not only, yes, I am an author. Finally, I am an author, but I also am a business owner of Phenomenon Cocktails, the ultimate cocktail experience. I enjoy being creative, so that's where I strive most, and I try to integrate that into all the things I do in my life. So.
Okay, I like that. So you named a couple of things, but one of the things that you mentioned was your story, and I think it's important to kind of give a little bit of insight in terms of what that story is. So if you can take us back as far as you are comfortable, what are some of the key things in TikTok's story that the people need to know that have kind of shaped you into the person that you are today, and that led you ultimately into being an author?
So I am a domestic violence survivor. I was in an abusive relationship that started when I was 13 years old. I'm from the DMV area. I'll just say DMV completely, but I grew up in Northeast DC. I rebelled as a teenager a lot, where there was definitely a lot of two sides. I hung out and things like that with my friends at Oxon Hill High School is where I went. But on the weekends, I went to live with my grandmother and stayed there up in Northeast. And I snuck out a lot because my mom was working and out of town. So I was kind of hanging out with, let's just say, the other side of the hand. And doing that, I got into a lot of different, like, I never did drugs because I'm too cute for that. But I did a lot of drinking. I was hanging out in bars at Adams Morgan, none of which are still to this day, probably for that reason. But in that mix, I had met the person I never thought that would do the things that they did to me. And I'm 30. Ooh, every time I say it, I'm like, oh yeah, new decade now. But I'm 30. I'll be 31 this year. And we met when I was 13. We started dating when I was 14. He was 17. And we stopped. I last saw him when I was 26. So 4 years ago. Poetry saved my life in a way because that was the only way I could actually tell someone, by writing it down. Only other people that really knew were God and kind of like the other people that were around us in that circle. Right. I didn't tell my mom because not everyone knows this, but he is white. So there was a different layer to that of, with him being white, my family being black, my family being my family, regardless of whether we have our issues, if there were to ever see him in person, that basically my family, that member's life would be over because of that aspect. So that was one reason why I think, as I reflect on it through therapy and through my writing, why I think also too, why I never really said anything. Even years and years later, when he just kept popping back up after college, when I moved to Rhode Island for work, when I was in Disney, like just popping up random places. That's a huge part of my story and how it shaped me, because it affected the way that I trusted people, and it affected all of my relationships, whether it been romantic, whether it been entanglements or situationships like you had mentioned this morning, or whether it been my friendships, because there was always a piece of me hiding this element too. And then when I finally spoke up about it, and they were honestly just doing the friend thing of telling me what I should do, or they would let someone else know, I got upset with them for mentioning it, even though they were looking out for my best interest, but I didn't see it at the time because I was too clouded by all the fear that was associated with that. But with writing, it helped me to be able to release a lot of that pain, but it also helped me be like, okay, you know what? When you're in those situations, you feel like you're alone. You feel like you're the only one dealing with it. But 1 in 4 women and men, because men go through this as well, are abused in America. About 40% of that ends in death. Wow. So not a lot of people get to share that story. And through therapy and prayer, because it's not just prayer, it's therapy and prayer, and doing the work, right, comes with having the voice and having the strength to share that story and to be able to talk about that, to know that there is healing after traumas and knowing how to be able to deal with those things.
Absolutely. And I like that you've been able to heal through those things. And I like that you kind of took us on that journey in regards to the things that you've dealt with and just kind of how they led you to becoming an author. Why was writing this book important to you?
Okay. This book was a long time coming. I had always said I was going to write a book for, I want to say, when TikTok first became TikTok. So everyone also knows that my name has been TikTok, You Don't Stop, since circa 2011 at Bridgewater College, which is my alma mater, where I first started performing poetry, which my first poem is actually in my book called Ping Pong. That's the very first spoken word piece I ever did for Miss Bridgewater contest, like pageant. That didn't win. That's okay, though. I was Miss Congeniality at school because, they have more fun anyway. Right. But I always kept saying, I'm going to write a book. And everyone kept telling me, you should write a book, you should write a book. But I've noticed when you don't have the right people pushing you, I'm the type of person, if you're going to keep pushing me, I kind of go in the very opposite direction. Hence why I rebelled so much as a teenager, what I said earlier. But when you have the right people pushing you, like you, and joining the Winner Circle, who actually are pushing me because they support me, but also, too, like you, within the past few years of us working together, you've kind of helped unlock this filter that I've been able to kind of like take off of myself to know that, okay, I can actually start seeing what other people are seeing in me, in myself. And I actually can do these things. Okay, I am doing it right. But I never really had a lot of that before without it being a lot of backhanded comments or backlash with it. So you are a very huge part of getting it done. But the last few years, it's always been different type of series. It's always been like, I was going to do this, I was going to do that. I did actually write the play version of my story that was contended for the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival. That's a very long acronym. But the play version, which is also my up and coming second book called The Bright Smile,
nice.
Which tells the entire story. So it's going to be in novel form. It's not going to be poetry.
Okay.
That tells the full story. So I've always been writing, but there was always something stopping me, and that thing that kept stopping me was one, fear, and myself. And a new poem that I kind of have been working on lately, I've realized I've been playing with my own potential. And I was stopping myself because I was fearing what would actually be on the other side. What would actually happen if I just did this thing? What would it look like when everything that I've been imagining, everything that I've been praying for, everything that I've been asking for finally happens? And now I'm entering a space and I'm like, actually, no, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. I actually like this. Now it's very new feelings, but it's amazing. So this project was like, okay, you know what? I overthought it, but it's like now I've done one. I'm ready to do a whole lot more others, and I'm very excited to see what I do next,
I think everybody is excited to see exactly what you do next. So in regards to this book and talking about this book, tell us why the title, Fine Like Wine, Getting Better with Time.
So like we had talked about earlier, I like to be creative in everything that I do. That's where I strive the most, but also too, all of my projects, all of the things that I like are very integrated with each other. So with Phenomenal Cocktails, that was actually the first business that I started, that I never thought I would start a business. That was never kind of like on the plans, but it turned out I was like, oh, I can do this. Okay. So I really enjoy making people feel great at the bar. It's kind of just a little... I'm not even going to say hobby. It's a craft that I picked up that I never thought I would be good at within like the past, I want to say 10 years of working within hospitality. That comes from also to my love of Disney and working with Disney when I did my internship. So I figured out a way to, how can I say this? I'm just going to say it. I actually don't like the taste of alcohol, but I like to make it twice as strong without the taste being there to still make it look good. Right. But you probably know. Right. But with Fine Like Wine, it became a thing of, I need something also to feel good about myself, because with a lot of other things I talk about in my book, another one of those things is an eating disorder. I am bulimic nervosa. So with that, I have not relapsed in the past 5 years, but came fibroids and came weight gain and like fluctuations, and I don't look like how I used to look. I may not write how I used to look. So I was like, you know what? I am getting older. And I'm like, when I get to that age or when I'm getting older, this is like a few years ago, I'm not going to think like these other women think. I'm still going to be good. And then here I am at this stage. And I'm like, okay, now I see what they meant. Stuff is not working like it used to. It's not like oiling up like it used to. It's a lot harder to get up. Okay, these 30s are a little new. And I was just like, you know what? It doesn't matter if you're not that same person that you were. You're still growing. You're still getting better. And with growth comes that healthy growth, especially if you're really putting in the work like you're supposed to. If you care to. Now, if you care to. I care to, because there's improvement. There's always improvement. And I thought I honestly knew everything, and I didn't know anything about anything. So Fine Like Wine is, of course, because who doesn't love wine, And it's pink, like my business, Phenomenal Cocktails, which is the Phenomenal Pink, and the Radiant Yellow. So I wanted it to, it's a little toned down though. It's not as like the fuchsia, but I wanted it to still be able to reflect my businesses and still be able to be connected. And even like you saw like the past December and also in October, I did a series of drinks with my favorite Disney and Harry Potter characters, which of course there are a lot of nerd references in my book too. That if you like those things, you catch those. With those things that I realized making like putting those things in there not only connect me to other people, but show that those things are authentically me. As fine as I am and all the other great things that I do, I still like Disney. I still love Harry Potter. I like Underworld and different other crazy series, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always okay to be your authentic self, and I think we should all be celebrated for being our authentic selves, because that who you are is enough for the world, and the world should accept you for who you are. I think it's dangerous when you start to change who you are in order to fit into certain circles or certain societal pressure. So you are always who you are. So is this a poetry book? Is this like an autobiography? Is this a book of yourself? What kind of book exactly is this? Like, what kind of stories? Because you say that we can hear some of the stories about your life in there. So what can we expect as we go through this book? So
as you can also see, on my shirt is haiku, honey, I'm never doing too much. You just need to step your game up, which is a few entendres. In this book, it is poetry. There's a few haikus, and then there's also something that I've introduced that's called Tik Tok Says. And if you are in the DMV area, or if you've been to poetry spots, if you say haiku, the audience is supposed to respond back haiku, and then you go into it. So for me, I do a Tik Tok Says, and I like people to say Tik Tok says what? And that's when I like kind of just say it's not haiku, but it's just my isms and like my sayings that I've learned that I like people to know. So how my book is designed, there's 5 stages of how wine is made. So out of those 5 stages, I've outlined those different stages of how I have been made until I got to 30, like up until this point.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
Okay.
So like, we'll just go through a few ones.
Okay.
So for the first stage of wine, it's called harvest, which is the very initial stage. So that first haiku is haiku. Only look in the rear view to see what you must leave behind. Forward. So that's the initial stage.
Yeah. Henry. That's a Henry Ford.
Okay.
Quote. Okay.
And then I'll just like skip ahead to the third stage, which is like fermentation, and it's a Tik Tok Says. Tik Tok says what? I learned in therapy that I avoid my emotions when the arduous ones come out to play. I'm a product of the generations before me, where you don't have time to deal with the pain when you're out surviving and chasing dreams. But the problem with that is you'll eventually explode. Time to be a big girl and face all that's been crippling me. So in this section of my book, which is kind of like the middle of the climax of everything dealing with the domestic violence I was experiencing, the rebound situations afterwards, stuff that I didn't address with my father and those issues of not meeting him not being there, taking out my issues with him on a lot of like my other relationships, after the person that I was in my most abusive relationship with. This is where I come to terms with, okay, I can no longer keep avoiding my emotions. And I don't know whether probably other poets may come to this thing or this realization, is that a lot of times when you are like some of your most fire pieces come out of like the most difficult situations.
For sure.
But for me, I thought that, okay, since I wrote it down, I can perform it. I'm performing out here on stages. I'm over it. And I've dealt with it, but I deal with it.
Yeah. I think dating poets should come with a warning label that says, warning, don't date me. And because if you break my heart, you will end up in a poem.
Yeah, I was telling I saw someone like, I was like, just know that good or bad, you may be. You write your poem and how you want it to be projected to people based on how well this goes. And we could break up amicably, but that's all. There is a haiku, which is my actually first haiku that's in the first part of my book, that tells me about how I was dealing with people, with men I shouldn't have been dealing with, that to this day, the person that haiku is about, he gets upset about it every time I post it. He just pops up and just like, you have to post that one. It just has to be that one. I was like, bruh, no one even knows it's about you. I mean,
right.
It's
unless
about
you get into the comments.
Yeah, I was like, it's about you. But for me, it's Granted, I can't be petty, but I'm not about to just say, "Hey, this is about you," or tag folks in that because that's childish. I know I got time for that.
Yeah.
And also, I don't want people in my business. Like nobody needs to know that. So
Right.
But
So,
okay.
So tell us the fifth. What's the fifth stage? You didn't tell us the fifth or the fourth stage, if you will.
Oh, yeah, we can go into the fourth. Oh, because that goes into like our next couple stages. So the fourth. Oops, sorry, y'all. I'm not losing the pages. So the fourth stage, the fourth and fifth stage, kind of like they go together, are aging and bottling. So once you age the wine, which they can sit in barrels, they can sit like out in like different climates and things of that nature, depending on where the valleys are, the sunlight, just different factors that play into like the actual taste of wine. And that comes with the aging, and it stays for a certain amount of months. That's aging, and then you bottle it. And then you ship it off. So I actually split those two stages because there's a lot that came with aging that I had to realize. I know we always think of the term aging like, oh my gosh, you're getting like old and shriveled, but no, I'm getting old and fine. So with aging, this section, this is me coming back to my relationship with God. So this one is haiku. Trust God's plan and his process. Blessings are maybe closer than they appear.
I like that. I like that.
And I had to really learn that. I'm not going to say that's been, oh my gosh, over the past year. I had to learn that, especially within at least the past year and a half, which goes into the last stage of the book.
The bottling.
The bottling. Of bottling haiku. When you reflect on your past, don't dwell on mistakes. Celebrate your growth.
Okay.
Because I made a mistake this time last year. Mm-hmm. I chose someone who was not choosing, let's just say choosing me, like they should have chose me. And I put my all into something because I had just lost a very, very dear friend of mine after like a 10-year relationship. And I felt alone, and there were other things going on in my life where I realized I just latched on to the first thing that I could because I was just desperate to feel something else. But I wasn't feeling myself with what I needed, which was putting my attention on God and loving myself more. But I just needed another type of distraction, which is why I said earlier the fermentation of that's why I learned in therapy, like I avoid my emotions. I avoid what's really going on with me. Instead of sitting down and processing them, I look for a new distraction. I look for a new project. But the problem is when that happens, you do eventually explode and it becomes too much. So we'll go to the TikTok says.
Okay, TikTok says. What does TikTok say?
I spent 6 months planning a wedding that never happened. I gave myself to someone who was still saving and giving themselves to the masses. I put all my endeavors on hold to be devoted to someone and something that was never fully mine. One day, I woke up and I realized I had been playing with my own potential. It was time to let go, step up, and do everything I knew I was destined to accomplish, which also, too, came my book.
Yes. Yeah, this was a this was a project that probably should have come last year.
Yes.
And because of that, because of the situation that happened, there's a lot of dedication that went into it, and I'm happy to see the formation of the book because you decided to choose yourself now, and you're in this space of where you chose yourself. And I've witnessed and been privileged to be a part of all of it, the ups, the downs, the happinesses, the sads, and eventually the joys, right? Kirk Franklin has a song, and in it he says, I don't want you to just have happiness, I want you to have joy, because when you have happiness, that means you have to have something to be happy about. Mm-hmm. When you have joy, no one can take that away from you. And I think this right here is a compilation of joy for you and where you are. So in the book, there are different poems that are in there that just talk about your life, or like, how do you tell us and how do you share with us the different stories of the things that have happened to you?
There are different poems that do tell different situations. Like I talk about, what it's like to relive having a trigger happen in the middle of a conversation. You're just having a conversation, but all of a sudden your trauma of you fearing that the man in front of you you're having a conversation with, that you're not even dating, but you fear him hitting you just because he raised his voice from a disagreement, what it's like to relive that all over again.
Okay.
That's one of my poems that's called Tonight that you'll see. I talk about what it's like being from a family full of women and you're all independent, but you don't have a father or really any other man around to teach you what it's like to have that dynamic. I talk about a piece of how it's hard to live with having an eating disorder, have fibroids, which is something that happens very often in Black women, but then people always commenting on your weight and what it's like to deal with that, and knowing how it's very hard to still hear those things and still pump yourself up, but you still pump yourself up as much as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. Like I have a line in there that says, I cover my spaces and affirmations to remind me to still celebrate myself regardless of where I am, which is something I actually really do.
Right.
I stay in Hobby Lobby. I mean, granted, it's an excuse, but it does help.
Excuse to shop anything will definitely do.
But it
retail
does help.
Therapy.
It does. I actually bought. I was just in Hobby Lobby 2 days ago and bought something that says "Work harder so you can shop harder." But I
need to get my stuff in Hobby Lobby.
Man, hey, look. But I do talk about these different things. I tell it in a way that like leads it up to like that moment of last year, before I got to 29. Because my biggest problem, I will say, within my 20s is something that I'll say I haven't unlearned it completely, because I do catch myself doing it. And, we all have those moments because we're not perfect. We're human and we are emotional creatures. Is I compared myself a lot to other people around me. Mm-hmm. And that was another factor that stopped me from doing stuff. Well, I was like, okay, if I'm not doing it like him or I'm not doing it like them, then I guess I can't do it. Because I've actually been performing poetry since 2011. And wow. I've been performing it here in this area at Busboys and Poets. Like there will be moments where like for a year or so, I'm like on this climb, I'm featuring, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then I just go off the handle and just disappear for like a few years. And I have to get back into it and try to figure out how I just jump back out there. And then it comes with, okay, I've been doing this for so long, but I haven't gotten to the place that this person's at or this person's at. But what I've learned is we all have our own type of story behind this microphone. We all have our own lives behind this microphone that people probably don't see when they get on stage, that no one understands the amount of man hours, the amount of sacrifices that we put into making this work. I mean, just because you're sitting here with me, I'm like, and because we know each other a little bit better, I'm like, probably people don't see the fact that you send out almost hundreds of emails a day. Like you have a wife, you have a wife, shout out to me, and you have businesses that you run, you have full-time jobs, and you travel. Like you have all these other different things, and it's like sometimes I wonder, when do you sleep, bruh?
Listen, as soon as I get home, I sleep as soon as I get home. Like I don't. So I think like there's a lot of responsibility, right? And with all of the different responsibilities, it's hard to get to everything because sometimes I just don't want to, right? So like, and the thing is that there really isn't a lot of room for I don't want to, but sometimes it's just like, yo, I don't want to. And sometimes I just want to do nothing. And I have very little time to do nothing. Like I love when people call me and they ask, yo, what you doing? You busy? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm always busy. What is it that you want me to feel my not busy with? Yeah. That's going to determine how busy I tell you I am. So yeah, no, I definitely understand that. And I appreciate that. So one of the things that you mentioned was therapy, and you've mentioned it. You mentioned it in the book. You talk about you talk about therapy. How has therapy been a catalyst to the new TikTok that we see today?
I love my therapist, man. I know I got real animated with that, but I love my therapist. I will say that we started my 29th birthday. So yeah, it's almost been 2-3 years now. The morning of my 29th birthday, I had my first therapy session, and it was the first therapy session that I did on my own. And I'll even explain how I even got. I didn't talk about that in the book because I like that to be a story. So what happened was, right, when Can We Talk was still at Palisades, the June show, I had a situationship. I was in a situationship, And said situationship came and was just in my face a few days ago. And we were chilling and everything like that. But then at the place was, let's just, in someone else's face. So I got in my feelings about that. Because at that point, I was just like, okay, so what are we
I still don't know
here?
who that person was, y'all.
We don't need to know. We don't have to talk about that.
I don't know who that person was. I'm kind of upset about that.
We'll talk about that. But I'm like, okay, so what are we doing here? Because I started asking myself these questions because I always fall into these insane cycles. Because the reason why I call it insane is because insanity is a definition of doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different outcome. And I was just doing the same thing over again with different men, expecting a different outcome. And like, at some point I had to start taking accountability and looking at myself in the mirror. Like, you have to accept the role that you play in this. It's not always them. Like, yes, don't excuse their behavior, but you can't control people, but you can control like how you respond to stuff and what you actually allow. And the fact that you're continuously allowing these things and that you're continuously playing along with these things, like, you're disrespecting yourself and you're giving this this person and other people to do the same to you. And you, like, you're allowed to have your feelings about it. Cool. But at some point we got to stop. So what are we doing? But what had happened was at that show, which has never happened in my entire career performing, I yelled back at an audience member to shut up and to be quiet in the middle of my performance. And it was at that moment, but I also had other things going on outside of my life.
I remember.
That had contributed just to that day. But I think that was the thing that just kind of set me off. And I felt so embarrassed. I felt just low, and I was like, okay, it was in that moment where I was just like, okay, you need help. You have to figure this out, because never in my life have I snapped on an audience member. Like, granted, noises actually do bother me just in general, even not on or off stage. Like, I actually just don't like certain noises because I've actually suffered 6 concussions in my life. So I just have like different, it's just a light and noise sensitivity. But never have you done this on stage and people see it. And not only do people see it, people that you've been working, like your colleagues, like, this is embarrassing. So I know that following week that's when we actually start working together and start setting up stuff. And you say, you have to take time for you. You need to feel like, we got to start doing stuff for you. You have to start trying to figure out what you're going to do and things of that nature. So that year for my birthday was my first solo trip where I went to LA and I went to go see my favorite, my number one, Christina Aguilera, at the Hollywood Bowl. And I went to Disneyland. And the first thing I learned about myself on that trip was I overcompensate when other people are around me when they don't ask me to. And I do it because I feel like I have to people please, just for the sake of people pleasing. And we had talked about this morning about code switching, and I wasn't thinking about it as so much as like what I forgot the billion names this morning, but Grant Cardone. I was thinking about it in myself of, okay, we already know about the other code switching we have to do when we go in certain rooms, but I was thinking about the code switching that I've done in my life, where I've done it to try to get people to still like me or to be able to manipulate the version of me in their head. Right. And I realized I do that a lot, not even just with going on trips, but just in general. And I said, I have to stop that. So the morning of my 29th birthday was probably most my favorite, because I woke up, I had my first therapy session. She's like, you've gone through a lot, but you don't give yourself grace. And we're going to stop saying, okay, we're just going to move past that, or you're over it, because you're not over it and it's okay to talk about these things. But I have a feeling you're used to people saying that, just get over it, which is something that a lot of women say in my family. Is just like, yeah, it hurts, it sucks, but you got things to do, so let's keep going, which is something that we have to do because we don't have men in our house. Like, we have to get it done, but that makes a very harder version of yourself that sometimes you don't recognize to that person. You don't feel comfortable being vulnerable. But what I found through therapy is I'm actually pretty self-aware. It's more so of, how do I fix these problems? And it's not at all what I thought it would be, because at least with my therapist now, I say, okay, hey, let me run this by you real quick. am I okay to like feel this way? She always does this. She says, your feelings are always valid, but they may not be fact.
I like that.
And that's something for the past few years. I've always, when I start getting to my, like I said earlier, I'm a Cancer. I am emotional. And it was also too coming to terms with, I am a person who operates from my emotions. I can be very logical, but accepting the fact that I operate from my emotions and understanding that that's just how I function, and it's perfectly okay. It's how do you make sure you register with your emotions to understand how you can better than function with the people around you and the situations that arise. So when I call it those moments when I am getting into my moods or I'm feeling some type of way about something, I have to take a minute and step back before I respond to somebody, because as empathic as I can be and as much empathy as I have, when I get upset, my empathy goes out the window. And I don't see it from someone's perspective because now I'm upset. And I have to take a second of, hold up. It may not be them. This may be a trigger from something else, but I have to do the digging of, why did it make me feel like this? When was the last time did I feel like this? And did it remind me of the situation, and analyze it that way? So I keep a therapy journal to talk about those things and like be able to reflect on those things, to go back at it. And then if there's something that I really, really want to work through, I'll go back and talk to my therapist in the sessions about. But if it's stuff that I can kind of like work through on my own, I do that. And then maybe a poem comes from that. That's what even too I had to learn within my career. Everything ain't got to be a long ass piece. A poem could just be a page.
A page. It could just be a couple of sentences, a couple lines.
And that's okay. And that's something that I was just like, okay, you know what? That's also too, you'll see in the book, you'll see a lot of different short pieces breaking up some of my longer or signature pieces. And I was just like, this is okay too. And or it just ends, or it can be cliffhangers. Right. So it's fine. So that's why I was happy about this project. Granted, yes, it should have been done last year, but I think it would not have came out the way it did had I not gone through what I had went through last year, got back into therapy, because when that situation happened, and this is also too me knowing myself, there were a lot of red flags that presented itself, and I actually did stop going to therapy because I didn't really want to hear anybody else's thoughts, because I was having them myself, but I was like, I think I kept praying for, no, this is going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work this time. It's going to work. And then when it didn't work, I wasn't as devastated because I kind of already was on edge about it and on the fence. And I was just like, all right, you know what? Let's figure this out. But the part I was more upset about was I was upset with myself because God had already told me that I am within you. And when I give you these moments of the inklings of if something's off or not to trust it, like just to stop it, you continuously choose not to stop it. So if you kind of already know that it's not right, you don't trust yourself, therefore you don't really trust me.
Yeah, I think so. You said a lot there. One of the first things that you said was about code switching, right? Mm-hmm. And I have a poem called "The Unveiling of Mask," and in that poem it talks about do you like me or the version of the person that you think I am? Mm-hmm. And so that line means so much to me because I've shown you what I want you to see. And that's pretty much it. That's all I've chosen to show you. And so now we have to ask ourselves, do people really like us or the version of the person that they think we are? Especially if you're not being your authentic and your true self, right? And when we think about our emotions, that was one of the other things that you mentioned. And how we control our emotions. I had someone ask me just the other day when I was out speaking, have you ever have your emotions ever taken control of you? And I said yes. And this was a young kid in middle school, and I'm like, yes. Even at your age, and even at my age that I'm at right now, my emotions have certainly taken control of me. And I think that people need to lean into their emotions as opposed to straying away from them, because leaning into your emotion and getting into it is the only way that you're going to be able to get to the root of that emotion. If you just allow that emotion to take control of the wheel and drive you where it wants to, then it's definitely going to take control of you, and you're going to be in a place where you don't want to be. You're going to say things that you don't mean or you don't want to say. You're going to make decisions, permanent decisions on temporary emotions and temporary feelings. And we know that that's not something that you should be doing. And so when you find yourself in that emotion, allow yourself to release, get into it and allow yourself to release it. And once you release it, you'll start to see that you feel much better in that. And I think that's kind of like what the idea of this book is. This is you leaning into those emotions and releasing those. And I think that that's so important. And people in general, we need to be in a position where we lean into our emotions, because I'm telling you, when you try to fight and hold them back, it does nothing but make the situation worse. We love pressure. We know pressure make diamonds, but we also know that pressure bursts pipes. And sometimes you just need to allow yourself a release, open the valve and just allow that stuff to go out and just have that moment.
But it's also something you say, I was thinking about it as well, is not even just from what I said, like from my experiences, but us as Black people, I don't think we just as a people were really taught how to do that. Right. And it's something that we had to learn. Because even then, like, the fact is sometimes, like, I'll take my therapy sessions at work. I will go hide in like a closet, or I'll go in another room, or I will just go in my car to have my therapy session, and I'll tell my staff, hey, look, for 1 hour, I don't exist to you. You will not see me. This is the person that can help you, but I need to go talk to my therapist. And I work with a very diverse staff of like all different backgrounds, and they're like, you're going to therapy? And I think it's still like a stigma thing of how honest you are about it, because they think, oh, you're crazy or something. It's like, no, I need someone to talk to about what's going on with me, whether it may be about what's actually going on right now with you with work, or whether it be how I realized my biggest question in therapy the other day that I was talking to my therapist was that I realized that I do not need validation from anybody else anymore. Your validation does not determine my value. It does not. However, I still indirectly seek validation from men because I do not get it from my father. And I've already had a moment that I'm going to save for my next book, because you have to buy the next one. I had a moment where I know I will never get that from my father, even though I've met him in person. But I said, now that I know that, and I continue to connect that, now how do I fix this? And then we had to stop, and she said, well, we'll do next week. But come back next week. To be continued. To be continued. But she said it's something that I still need to make sure I'm conscious of, to make sure I'm still doing things for me and not doing it for somebody else. So when I do make decisions now, I always make sure that I ask myself, okay, am I doing this because I want to wear it, or am I doing it to impress somebody, or am I doing it because I'm still seeking validation from someone else that I know I'm not going to get it from? So Tony Robbins has this thing on Netflix. It's called I'm Not Your Guru. And there was a young woman who he was having a conversation with in front of thousands of people, and he was asking her, have you thanked your father for being the man that he was? And so I think, like, for you, right, that's and you know, and that's the same exact response. She's like, thank, like, what are you saying? Have you thanked? Because he was who he was, it produced the person that you are right now. And he said sometimes we blame people for who they are, or who they're not, and we don't blame them for who they are. Like, if he was the person that you needed or wanted him to be, you wouldn't be as strong as you are now. Granted, it did come with a whole lot of issues that you're working through right now.
But he said, you blame him for all of the stuff that didn't happen, but you need to look at the stuff that did happen and look at what was produced out of this, right? And so he said, when you blame him, he said, you need to blame him consciously. You need to blame him for making you into who he is. Like blaming him in a sense of like, thank you for not being there. Thank you for not showing up. Thank you for not being everything that I need you. And that to me is taking back control of the situation. Like I definitely think you should watch. It's like 2 hours long, but that's in like between 17 minutes and 22 minutes. And that scene really caught me because it made me think about my situation with my daughter. And I was like, yo, if someone doesn't have that type of conversation with her, I'm afraid that she might not see what I've done as valuable. And granted, I'm there for her and she always has me, but we have a unique relationship. And so I definitely think that in some way you might be able to get your own view from that conversation. But I definitely think you should check that out. I'm not your guru. It's like in the first 17, between 17 minutes and 22 minutes.
I mean, before I go to whiskey nights tonight, today is kind of just a relaxed day. Because I'm thinking, when you said that, I'm thinking about the poem in the book that's called My Apologies, that starts with the first part of it, apologizing to the men that I've dated and realizing that I had played my toxic part of, there were some times that I didn't realize, sometimes, and
I have a poem like that. It's called Monopoly, and I talk about me being community chess.
This is what therapy does for you. It's just like, you have to become self-aware, but that's only if you dare to and if you want to. And I had to realize that sometimes that I am actually a master manipulator, not in a way that's like completely like horrible to get people to do the things I want them to do. But it's like, I'm a master manipulator of like emotions and playing a game that will never be won. Like, I put expectations on you that I set so high that I knew you would never reach the bar from the first place, but I still chose to date you anyway, just because I knew you were going to be a disappointment anyway. And I also, too, put expectations for you to do things to make up for the shortcomings of my father on you, but that wasn't your job to do that. Right. It wasn't. Because you aren't my father, and I'm not your daughter. Like, I'm actually supposed to be your partner. I'm supposed to be your girlfriend, and then move on from those things. But I put all this pressure on you, and even the attention and stuff that you gave me, even the love that you gave me, it still never felt like enough because I didn't give myself a chance to heal from that. And then I apologized, like, to him. Like I was saying, I apologized because you weren't there, and then you weren't man enough, and I was trying to keep going through it, and I was just like, okay, you know what? I still love you for contributing to make like to the creation of me, but I'm still, and I will say, when was that? That was before 2020 when I actually met him in person. I'm still dealing with accepting the fact that this is it may not happen type of thing. You may not get the closure that you want to get from that. I wrote a poem like that called Saying My Piece in regards to a relationship that she broke up with me on my birthday just by ghosting me, right? And I was like, yo, like, what? Damn, like, you know what I mean? Well, I thought everything was good. But she ran away from the relationship just because she didn't want to deal with what I told her was coming next. Like, yo, I told her before we got together, I said, hey, I'm moving in a year. So if you're not ready to move from Pennsylvania back to where I'm moving to, it makes no sense for us to get into a relationship. Told her that complete. No, we can do it. I was like, all right, cool, great. Let's get into a relationship. We were together for 7 months. And then on my birthday, which now the move is getting closer. The move is like 4 months away. So I'm telling, hey, look, this is it. And before we can even get to that point, she just completely up and disappeared. And so I had to, in the poem, I said I had to write this piece so that I can come to peace with myself and finally say peace to you, because and then it goes on to say I can't keep these feelings inside and bottled up and allow them to erupt on the next woman that comes into my life. I'm cleansing my soul. Now I can be whole. No more fragmented pieces. This is my mended heart thesis. So now I'm saying, like, I got to put myself back together, and I gotta write about it, man. I got to write about it and get this stuff out, because if I don't,
The next person that comes into my life, I'm never going to allow you to celebrate birthdays with me. And the first thing my wife did was celebrate my birthday.
I know you said that was your first date,
That
right?
that was our first like date. Well, I mean, we had dates, but like our first time going out to eat, she took me out to eat. And if I didn't come to peace with myself about what this other person did, I'd have been like, dude, you're not taking me out to no, because this can only end horribly because of my past experiences. So writing was something that kind of helped me to kind of come to peace with myself. And I like that you were able to write and now come to peace with the fact that, hey, I may not get this, but at least I've said everything that I need to say in this regard. I told that to a client that I worked with the other day, who her father was shot and killed in front of her when she was 2 years old. And I said, when's the last time you wrote a letter to your dad? She's like, I've never wrote a letter to my dad. I said, maybe you need to write a letter to your dad and express to him what it is that you feel. Hey, I wanted you to be here. I wish you can see me. I wish you can do. And then maybe write a response to what you think your dad would say.
Yeah.
What do you think your dad would say to in response to this letter? And maybe you just need to have that exchange, have that dialogue. Maybe you need to go to his grave and talk and have a conversation, right? We think that's crazy. We think that, no, I don't need that, or that's crazy talk or something like that. But no, like
it's healing.
It's healing. Go and have that conversation. Again, you're straying away from something you don't understand because you don't understand it. When in actuality, you need to lean into those feelings. You need to lean into that conversation. You leaned into it, and out came a book. Out came a cup. I need one of those cups
it's a
too.
wine
That joint's
tumbler.
fire. I need one of those.
You know what? I'll make it in blue. I'll make it in backpack blue for you.
Okay, yeah, please. I need that. That's fire. Out came coasters. Out came calendar. Out came shirts. Out came all of these different products of self-love. So you're on this journey of self-love. Where are you in this journey of self-love right now? Like, what's the next part of this self-love journey as it continues?
The next part of this is understanding that healing is a continuous journey. So far within my book actually physically got here on the 14th. So what we're 11 days. 11 days. I've sold 58 copies.
It was 52
online.
The other day.
Oh yeah. So actually I got a few more orders like right before I got here. So like 52 since this morning. So
right.
I sold 6 more like online this morning. And I am in a place of appreciation. I'm in a place of understanding that not only do I deserve to be celebrated, that I deserve to celebrate myself. So I am practicing being present and enjoying it, because actually Bree posted something that I actually reposted before we started was that someone like was saying that congratulations on whatever you had did, and you actually had the first initial to be like, oh, I want to deflect it, but they said, I'm just gonna give you your flowers, you can choose to water them or not, but I'm still gonna give them to you. And I was like, oh yeah, girl, you know what, that is important, because everyone has been so amazing to me these past couple of weeks. And this, I'll say, at least, I'm not gonna say like for the first time, but for at least right now, this has been one of the times where I have not experienced this much type of love and people showing up for me the way that they have and being so supportive, and actually just with all the words of encouragement. And I am trying to actually just say, well, no, I say thank you, but I feel like there's something that I'm supposed to say afterwards. And I was talking to the person that I'm dating now, and he was just like, there doesn't have to be anything afterwards. You can just say thank you and just be appreciative, because I know that you're actually grateful for it. Yeah. And I do understand.
It's a genuine thank you.
Yeah, like it's actually a genuine thank you, because I'm like silent and I'm just like, I feel very awkward because I've never been in this space before. But it's just like, it's okay.
Yeah,
moving on, but you guys don't understand that as bubbly and animated I am, I'm actually an introvert, and I'm sometimes very socially awkward when it comes to these things. But knowing that there is someone also too here, genuinely supporting me, like I'm actually just in a new space of experiencing like genuine love and exploring what that is and giving myself grace, allowing myself time, allowing myself patience, and actually, yes, I'm still celebrating this moment. Yes, I am working on my future projects, but I'm not forgetting to still celebrate what I have accomplished. Because like you and I have talked about this as, all right, I get this thing done, but I move to the next thing. I'm like, all right, it's done. Yay, yippee. All right, so this has to be done. And you're like, no, but you got this. Like, okay, yeah, I got that. 1, 2, 3, and 4 still has to be done. So I'm gonna do this. All right, I got these done. What's next? And you're like, did you even say, sis, you great job? No,
Right.
great.
Congratulate yourself, celebrate yourself, and make it a moment for sure. Like you want to relish in that moment. We never want to be satisfied, but we also want to take time to relish in the moment of what we do. And it can be a continued celebration. Even though we're working on new things, we can still continuously celebrate where we are and what it is that we're doing. And so I always want that. And I wanted one thing that you said when your person told you, you can just say thank you and that's it. Trauma from our past relationships can show up in our current relationships and affect them. And for me, what that looked like was this girl that I talked to a couple years ago, like four years ago, maybe now. She said to me, why do you always apologize when you didn't do anything? And I was like, I do. She was like, yeah, you just say sorry. You naturally always say sorry when it didn't even cause for a sorry. And that trauma from the longest relationship that I'd ever been in at the time was I always had to say sorry. Even if like this person had a way of, when I was mad and when I was angry, they can flip it. And by the end of the conversation, I'm saying sorry to them for being mad about something that they did to me. And I'm like, what kind of voodoo was that? Like, you know, so I brought that into a relationship until someone brought that to my attention. And now I'm more aware of, I don't have to say sorry all the time because there's nothing that I need to be sorry for, number one. And number two, like it's not required. So saying that same way, right? Thank you could just be thank you because you're a genuine person and this person knows who you are. Just thank you. That's it. And just leave it there. So
yeah,
good job.
Thank you, man. Because there have been a lot of moments like within the past like week or two where I'm just like, I feel like I need to say something. I feel like I need to do something else. Because normally it's always for me, like you said, that trauma it's always been a give or take. Like, and it's always been like used against me. If someone would do something for me, I always had to do something back, or I would try to make sure I overcompensated to make sure that the scores were even some way out. But there was really no one, but people that I have dealt with like kind of did keep score with me. But now it's understanding that and having the conversations, because that's another thing too, is I'm not actually used to communicating about my feelings and someone actually listening to me. And it's been a eye-opening experience, but it's also very new of, okay, I communicate that, look, I am working on my stuff. This may not be right at this moment. This ain't be right at this moment, but I am working on it. Also understanding that this is what I need. I'm not used to saying, this is what I need. Like, I need patience. I need some understanding. I need you to understand that, yes, you may want to talk about stuff and vice versa. But if I am in a space where I'm triggered by something, or I may get pissed off, or I may get mad, even if it is you, I know myself at this point to know that the next thing out my mouth may not be the right thing, because I'm going to be operating from a different side of my emotions that is used to the defense of just going for the jugular and going for low blows. Because I got a real smart ass mouth, excuse me, but I have a really smart mouth, and I go for blood at that point when I'm upset. But I don't want to do that with you. So give me a moment to step back, but also to give me a moment to understand that it does not have to be that type of conversation, because I don't want to do that with you, so that way we can better communicate. That was a real big girl thing I did the other day. And I was like, oh, it was just like, okay, we can do that. We can have space. We can say, hey, a tap out word. We were trying to figure out like a safe word. I was like, fine, we can do that. That's perfectly fine. And having someone willing to kind of like do that with you. And I never thought like what compromise and stuff would look like. I never thought with like these real communication things would look like, just all healthy relationship stuff that you see. And now that you're in it, it's like, oh, okay, I can do this if someone else is also too willing to do it with me. You know, so it's nice.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell people, how can they get a copy of this book? How can they support you? What's coming up next? What's going on? Talk to us.
Okay, so they want to get a copy of the book. You know, you want to get like the T-shirt or the wine tumbler, the calendar or the coasters. You can go to my website, TikTokyDon'tStop.com. That's TikToky Don't Stop. Ha, like my name, you know. But it's TikTokyDon'tStop.com. Until next week, I've extended it because it is Women's History Month next month. Until next week, I am still having physical copies that if you order on my website, you will get a signed copy either shipped to you, or you can pick it up from anywhere I'm going to be in the city. If you'll see my upcoming events, you can pick them up then, but you'll get a signed copy. After that, it will be direct shipped to your home and it won't be signed. So, you know, you want to go ahead and jump on that. And that's the same thing as my social media handle on Instagram or on Facebook is TikTok. You don't stop. That's where you can find me.
Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much. I definitely understand and hope that y'all took something from this episode. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with your friends. Share this with your auntie, your uncle, your cousins, your little cousins, your big cousins. Make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. Hit that comment, hit that subscribe button. That's down there. We appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us and being a part of this amazing conversation. Y'all know my motto: always stay in your bag so you never got to chase a bag. Until then, I'll talk to y'all next time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
You're welcome.